Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about the nomination of Pete Hegseth to run the Department of Defense, the largest, most complicated department and armed forces in the history of the world, and one, of course, completely critical for American safety and security, and one with a very deep inbred culture about which he knows not much. He is a Fox News weekend host. He served in the National Guard. I think he's really has no strategic defense planning expertise, no bureaucratic and managerial experience. He is totally over his head, and he wouldn't even be on the top 1,000 list of candidates in any other administration, but his conservative bona fides and his record on Fox News, Trump's favorite channel, is what recommends him. All right, but what disqualifies him, except it's not at all clear that he will be disqualified, is a record of personal conduct that is completely head-spinning. The two twin pillars of this are alcohol abuse, I mean serious alcohol abuse, and domestic abuse of women, to include his wives, but not only his wives. To give the state of the bidding, nominees have to get out of the committee, the Armed Services Committee, and then they go for votes on the floor. Hegseth, got out of committee on a straight party line vote of 14-13. The most important pivotal figure for his support is Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa, both because she has really strong defense experience. She's an Iraq War veteran, and she's a survivor of sexual assault. And so she would be the kind of benchmark of whether he would be tolerable. And she had significant concerns. And the story here outside of the Department of Defense, just the story of Trump's strong arm tactics and his bully boy way of really cowing the Senate, is that here, when her potential opposition became known, she was the subject of a full-on TV campaign and kind of onslaught of criticism in Iowa, and then threats, no other way to put it, from Trump's circle that she would be primaried. That's normally the threat they've made to Republican members of the House. Here's the Senate, and it's more serious in a way. For one, only every 6 years, but she happens to be nearly in cycle. And two, you lose a senator, you primary them, get a MAGA crazy to defeat them, and then if you lose in the general election, that really it can be pivotal in the overall balance of power in the Senate, which only has 100 members. Nevertheless, they came in with the brass knuckles and told Ernst she better damn well capitulate, and she did. So that got him out of committee, and it seems likely to get him over the finish line, even though there are new and really serious allegations here. The dynamic, as you know, on the Senate floor is the Republicans have a margin of 3 to work with. And if you think about the three opponents, you would have considered Ernst as one of the three. Really, you need 4 opponents, and Collins and Murkowski seem possibly opposed, but the whole rest of the Republicans seem sheep-like, ready to ignore not allegations. It's really, really very well-backed allegations that clearly I've been involved in nominations of judges and other officials from within an administration, clearly would have completely tubed any candidacy in the past. You wouldn't have even gone forward with it, and certainly you would have withdrawn. There are sort of two sorts. One is drinking. And we're not talking about, gets tipsy or even occasionally ties one on. We're talking about alcohol abuse. Here's from the Wall Street Journal. Relatives of him told in sworn statements the Senate that he regularly abused alcohol to the point that he passed out at family gatherings, right? Do you have family gatherings where someone just totally drinks and passes out? Imagine that figure now being nominated to run the Department of Defense, and once needed to be dragged. This is quite a detail. Dragged out of a strip club while in uniform. And it goes on and on here, but it's not a single account. We have a series of organizations that he ran disastrously, and one of the big problems was really excessive drinking. Not just having a few after hours. This guy is completely imbalanced as in terms of his drinking. And just imagine we have a new attack in NATO, and our Department of Defense head is laid out on the ground, drunk as a skunk. And even more than that, just, what does it do to the morale of the Army, which is a very well-disciplined organization, can probably survive any jerk who's at the top, but to know that they're, they're proud of their leadership, being led by really a two-bit drunk. But not just a two-bit drunk, because he's also a two-bit domestic violent assailant. So we already knew they'd already had allegations of problem with a series of women, including assault. There are several women involved, but the most incendiary allegation has been from a woman who basically says he raped her. Here's the allegation. They were in a hotel room. He took her phone. He blocked her from leaving and engaged in the allegation is non-consensual sexual activity. So either rape or a serious sexual assault. And she filed reports. I think she goes to the hospital, gets a rape kit and everything. The police decide not to follow through based on insufficient evidence. We don't know exactly, the specifics of that decision, but obviously, as we underscored with Matt Gaetz, that it didn't go forward certainly is not the standard for whether there are substantial enough concerns that you don't want this guy to head the Department of Defense. Anyway, more than that, he and she settled. He paid her money to shut up, basically. We don't know the specifics. She hasn't been involved in this actual confirmation battle. But we know of the facts, and we know that they have been, that it was worth money to him to keep them from becoming public. So that's the first. After, just in the last day, we have another really serious allegation again of basically violent abuse. So this is now the former sister-in-law. I think, he's had several different wives, but we have an affidavit to the Senate after he's, narrowly gotten out of committee, where she said her sister was married to the guy and she was scared of him. They had a safe word that she would call up and to say to her sister to basically come rescue her. There's an incident where she's hiding in a closet because she fears for her physical safety. And we're talking about not a single incident, but a series of them. So, really serious allegations that are now in an affidavit. We have a couple affidavits that you think would be explored. I'll just say one other point is just a whole kind of series of financial misconduct leading different organizations probably caught up in the alcohol abuse, but he was forced out of leadership roles because of misuse of funds, and also creating surprise, a hostile work environment. His best known position, by the way, had been against women in combat. He now sees the light and says it's okay as long as standards are high. But here's what we have: a guy with very little experience and a unbelievable minefield of failure at different organizations, financial abuse, alcohol abuse, sexual misconduct, violent sexual misconduct, criminal sexual misconduct. That's the state of play as it goes to the House floor. And I'm here to tell you, this feels a lot like other previous controversial nominations, say Justice Kavanaugh, because I think you have Republicans lining up and saying things like, we're looking at the future, not the past, and just, basically sweeping it away and ready to do Trump's bidding on somebody who's a flagrantly unqualified candidate. We're talking about a very, very challenging job, even without these spectacular drinking, financial abuse, and criminal sexual conduct. And that's basically the kinds of, bromides the Republicans are offering. That, and of course, from the old playbook, vilifying the victim, saying that, the affidavits filed by the former sister-in-law, and the whole episode, the episode with the woman who had gone to the hospital, said she was raped. Well, she hasn't come forward. And then with the ex-sister-in-law, she's a partisan Democrat. That's the playbook. It's a familiar playbook. It's a really dangerous playbook for the person who's been nominated to head the Department of Defense. So much crap is going on right now with Trump, and it's basically horrifying that this maybe takes a second row seat. But we're looking at a few nominations in particular that are spectacularly wrong and dangerous, and that he is pushing through with strong arm tactics. Witness what happened with Senator Ernst, and are just good for Trump, a flunky in play who owes everything to him. Bad for the country, bad for the country, bad for the country. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.